There are 7 levels to Airbnb arbitrage, from landing your first booking to deciding what to do with bigger investments it opens up, and most people are stuck on the first one without realizing it. So in this video, I'll show you exactly which level you're on, how to move up to the next one, and what's actually waiting for you at level 7. Level 1 is curious. This is the person who already knows what Airbnb arbitrage is, has done the research, and gets why it works. They just haven't started. Here's how you know if you are here. You have been researching this for months, maybe even longer, who knows, maybe a few years. You know the model, but maybe you just haven't committed to a market, and every new video feels like something you need to watch before you can move on. Now, most people that are at this first level, to be honest, they know way more than they think, right? They've watched a ton of videos, they gather all this research, all this information, what markets to go into, how to actually start landing their first deals. But the problem is they kind of get caught in this outside noise. They have friends, they have family telling, Airbnbs are dead, short-term rentals are dying down, regulations play a massive role in this, you should stay far away from that. And to be honest, then fear starts to creep in with a lot of these people that are stuck at level 1 and they never get started, right? Because that person that has all this information gets stuck in analysis paralysis. Now, this is very normal. Okay, this happens to a lot of people that are at this first level, starting any business, quite frankly. But to be frank, there's never going to be a perfect time to start any business, right? So the more that you sit on things, the more information that you start gathering, right? It's always important to do due diligence, right? And actually understand if this is the right vehicle or right business model for you. Absolutely. But aside from that, you don't want to stay too long in this first level because then you get stuck in analysis paralysis, like I mentioned before. And there's never going to be that perfect time to actually take action. So a lot of people just get stuck with information overload and then get a little bit of fear to take the next step forward. Now, this is where most people get stuck. And to be frank, every month that goes by is another month of you not bringing in passive income through Airbnb. So what do you actually do here if you're stuck at level 1? You need to stop researching the model and pick one market and just go all in. Check the occupancy rates, look at the average daily rates, and start looking at similar properties that are actually bringing in the cash flow that we want. And listen, if you're stuck at level 1 and you're tired of sitting on this, we offer a free strategy call where we'll look at your specific situation and map out exactly how to get your first property live on Airbnb. So go check out the link, it's in the description. Now, level 2 is beginner. You've picked a market, you started to understand how the business works, and you're taking real steps now, not just watching videos. And this is what level 2 looks like exactly. Now, you understand how Airbnb arbitrage works and why it's different from long-term rentals. You've done the market research and you have a general idea of where you want to start. You are starting to look at properties and you figured out what a good deal actually looks like, and you just haven't landed your first property yet. So most people, they know what they're supposed to do when they're approaching landlords. They're feeling uncomfortable and unfamiliar, and that's very common, right? Fear of rejection is real here. Most people hear of, getting their first no and think the whole thing does not work. Guys, just a little bit of flashback when I first got started in this. It took me over 100 landlords that I had to speak to, right? Not only to speak to the right person, but myself, I had to build the confidence up. I had to build the certainty behind my pitch and present the business in the correct way in front of these landlords, apartment complexes, and property managed groups. And it's a numbers game. The more no's you get, the closer you are to getting your first yes. Now, in correspondence with that, they're also learning the difference between a good property and a bad one, because not every listing or every property is going to be worth pursuing. And that gets hard at times, right? You get discouraged. It's like, I can't find the right property. I can't find the right numbers that are going to line up to make this worthwhile, right? And this is where a lot of patience come in. So separate from you actually pitching these landlords and getting more no's until you get your yes, you also have to really understand the difference between, okay, what are the properties that we want to go after and which are the ones that we want to stay far away? And that can be very difficult at first, right? On top of the fear creeping in with pitching these landlords, you just need to understand this is a numbers game. It's going to take time. You have to have patience, but once one door opens up, hundreds of other doors are going to be behind it that open up as well. Now, the only thing that is going to move you out of level 2 is getting your first property live on Airbnb. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be fully optimized. You just need to go live. And that first booking is going to change everything. Level 3 is stable. This is where things start to feel real. You have your first property live on Airbnb and it's consistently bringing in money every single month. But here's what it actually feels like in level 3. All right, so you got your first unit live. It's starting to cash flow consistently. Now, when your first unit is cash flowing, it really depends on how big the property is. On average, right, we want to be profiting about $800 to $1,000 per bedroom door. So if you have a 2-bedroom sized apartment or multifamily house, you're going to be bringing in roughly about $1,600 a month to be conservative, as long as your pricing is set correctly. That is the average as far as returns from your first property to be expecting. You're getting a feel for how the business actually operates day to day and how to run the systems and automations, but you're still handling most things yourself, like guest messages, right? Overseeing that stuff, maintenance issues, all of that. Now, this is where a lot of people hit a ceiling because they're doing everything themselves. They're trying to handle all guest communication, handle all of the pricing, communication with the landlord, apartment complexes, maintenance. But that's a big problem. And we talk about this a lot inside our program, where you need to be working on the business rather than inside the business. And this is where a lot of people hit a ceiling. And what that actually looks like is like, great, you have a working property, right? You're a business owner, but you're basically a full-time Airbnb host at the same time, and it completely defeats the opportunity on why we get started in Airbnb arbitrage in the first place. Now, for me specifically, I was at this level for a good amount of time, more than I'd like, honestly, when I look back at it, because even though I was scaling my portfolio up super quick, I was still doing the day-to-day operations. And even though I'm a workaholic and I like to do a lot of things and work a lot, don't get me wrong, I was still taking time away from the revenue generating tasks of the business, which was speaking to more landlords, calling more property management groups and apartment complexes. The actual revenue generating tasks of this company, right? I didn't really hit that breakthrough until I had that turning point of like, okay, I need to start outsourcing all these things. So let alone from having the all systems, the automations, I ended up started bringing virtual assistants to start maintaining and overseeing these automations as they were running smoothly throughout the weeks, throughout the months. This way, I didn't have to put my time, focus, and energy on these day-to-day tasks. I was able to offload them where I could put my time, focus, and energy as a CEO and actually scale the revenue much, much faster. So this is again where a lot of hosts, quite frankly, a lot of business owners get stuck when they start a business because they try to do everything themselves. And the sooner that you realize that you have to outsource these things is the sooner that you're actually going to be able to scale up to your cash flow goals with your business. Now, once you get the right people in place that's going to actually handle the day-to-day, the business starts operating a lot smoother. You have less strain in the business model, and overall, you have more leverage. You're not stuck on the phone answering guest messages anymore. You have the time and headspace to go after and find the next deal and take the business higher and higher. Level 4 is scaling. You're now past your first property and you're starting to build something real. You have 2 or 3 units running and you're figuring out how to actually grow this thing faster. You're going to ask yourself these questions. Do you have 2 or 3 units running right now? Are you starting to look at how to actually fund your next property without coming out of pocket? Are you getting better at spotting good deals and walking away from the bad ones? And these are really good questions to ask yourself, because at this level, the biggest unlock is learning how to use other people's money to scale, right? We talk time and time again about 0% interest business credit cards and how most people don't even know that this is an option. But this is super crucial, especially when you're first starting out. Not everyone has a lot of capital to start with, whether it's in their savings, checking accounts, or other investments. So the most important thing here is leveraging OPM, other people's money. So you want to make sure you're getting these 0% interest business credit cards, even if you're just getting approved for $10,000 in your first go around. That's a massive amount of money that you can use to fund 1 or 2 properties right out of the gate. And the biggest thing that a lot of people don't understand here is you could go through multiple rounds of funding, right? So as you're running your business and as you're building business credit, we can start applying for these cards every 3, 6, 9 months, which is going to increase your chances of getting approved with higher limit on each go around. Now, another big skill set here is negotiating leases, right? Things start to become real. These are real skill sets. Getting free rent periods, negotiating the normal base rent down, getting security deposit back. This is where you start going from being an actual business owner to a boss. And there's a big difference between the two. And the more properties you have in your portfolio, the more you can start playing around with things, right? The more leverage you could stand on with these landlords, these apartment complexes. So when you start to build the skill set of negotiating these leases, knocking some money off rent, long term, that's going to play a massive role on how quick you scale, because now you're protecting more of your money, which is allowing you to increase the investment to scale much faster. A lot of people that are at this level are making anywhere between $5,000 to $8,000 a month in profit. And in correspondence with that, most people are leaving money on the table. They're not optimizing their pricing. They're just trying to grow and grow and grow everything, which is good, right? But we need to understand how to really benefit and capitalize on pricing in different seasons and different markets. So we want to make sure we're not leaving money on the table here, because that's going to give us the extra boost to continue scaling in the long run. At this level, you have 2 jobs. So make the units you already have as profitable as possible and use that momentum to go on to the next one. Once you have the funding strategies down and the negotiating skill sets, well, scaling from 3 units to 5 or 6 becomes a lot more repeatable. Level 5 is expanding. You're no longer operating in just one market. You're launching units in multiple different cities, and your income is not tied to one location anymore. If this sounds like you, this is where you are. So you have proven the model works in your first market and you are ready to take it somewhere new. You're starting to bring in property managers and boots on the ground in other cities. And now your focus is shifting away from running properties toward vetting new markets and new deals. Now, this is a whole new level of complexity because you are now managing people across multiple different locations. First things first, so many people that go into one market, they want to immediately get properties in other markets. And that's actually the quite opposite that you want to do. When you first go into a market, scale up to 5, 10, 15 properties, because when you build that boots on the ground team, right? Well, it's just for that market only. So if you go to a completely different area, you're going to have to rebuild that boots on the ground team, rebuild that foundation, and that comes with time. So what you really need to do here is build the team in the one market, scale, and then once you actually have consistent cash flow, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month, then you could go ahead and start diversifying in new markets. Now, for me specifically, I didn't scale to my second market until I got 12, 15 properties in my one area, because I had a really good boots on the ground team. I had a really good head cleaning team. And I knew that if if I were to go ahead and jump to a new area, I'm gonna have to refine those cleaners. And something that was more important for me rather than diversifying was to actually get my portfolio cash flowing to the monetary goals that I wanted until I went ahead to diversify. And for me specifically, what really took me from this level to the next one was bringing in bigger people to take bigger roles in the company, right? Bringing in head of ops to manage my virtual assistants, making sure that they're sending the correct messages, right? They're checking the Ring doorbells. They're checking everything that was going on a day-to-day basis, right? So I didn't have to worry about the miscellaneous problems that could go wrong. On top of that, bringing in a property manager, someone that can go through your cleaners behind them with a checklist to make sure that these properties are cleaned and ready for the guests to come in. This is really where I went to the next level because it really allowed me to focus on the growth aspect of the business. Now, diversifying to different markets is really good, right? It's also going to protect the business. So if one market slows down or if it's in slow season, the other markets can carry it. But before you go ahead and do this, you need to make sure that you build that solid boots on the ground team. So a lot of people at this level are making anywhere between $8,000 to $10,000, maybe $12,000 a month. And they have to have this breakthrough of building that good team and then to diversify so they can really scale the revenue generating tasks of the business, which is adding more properties in the portfolio. The goal at level 5 is to build a team that can operate anything without you in any market that you're in. Level 6 is automated. This is where the business is truly running without you. Your team is handling everything: guest communication, maintenance, Airbnb issues, all of it. At this point in the journey, you're completely removed from all the day-to-day operations. Your team is handling everything that keeps the properties running, whether it's communication from Airbnb, communication with the guests via phone or via messages. Now, your only focus is finding and closing more deals. Now, most people at the stage are making anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000-ish a month in pure profit. So a lot of these people thinks it takes years to get here, but the real systems that we talked about in level 3 are what actually makes it possible to be here. And when you really boil it down, the people who never reach level 6 are the ones to never let go of anything in their business and they try to control everything. Those people do not make it to this level, right? You have to be able to let go of certain things in the business, letting employees fail, right? Letting things go wrong. This way you can overcome them. This way you slowly work towards working on the business rather than in the business, which what we spoke about previously. And when you look at one of our clients, Jake, right? This is exactly where he's at in level 6. He's making about $20,000 to $30,000 a month. And when you look back at where he started, even previously, before he got into Airbnb, he was mobile detailing, making around $3,000-4,000 a month. He was cleaning all the cars himself, even with Airbnb, right? When he had about 5 properties, he was doing all the guest communication himself. He was scheduling all the cleaners himself. He was doing all these day-to-day operations where he didn't need to be required to do those things. And what got him to this level 6 was letting go of these things that we talked about previously. And that's exactly what Jake did, was pull himself out of the business to get him to this level 6 of what we're talking about now. When you are here, your time is yours. The business is producing income and you are not the one running it. That is when you start thinking about what to do with the money that you're actually bringing in. Now, lastly, level 7 is wealthy. This is where the business has done its job. You've built a semi-passive income stream that's consistently bringing in money every single month without you being involved in the day-to-day. You know that you're at this level 7 when you have a steady cash flowing portfolio that runs without you. You are no longer thinking about how to actually grow the Airbnb business. You're thinking about what to do with what it has produced. And you start looking at the bigger picture, right? Investments, buying short-term rental properties to do Airbnb with, maybe even diversifying into long-term rentals, larger real estate projects that require bigger capital intensive on the front end. That's when you start pouring in, thinking about bigger investments over there. A lot of people that are at this level 7 are making about $30,000 plus a month. And a lot of people think about just continue to add more Airbnb units forever, but that actually changes completely when you hit this level. There are 3 phases to this journey: creating the cash flow, multiplying it, and then preserving it. So once you have this money that's coming in, you start to look into other opportunities. Like I talked about, buying short-term rentals, maybe land development. These larger capital intensive business models that provide more of a return may take a little bit longer cash conversion cycle or have a longer ROI, but you make more money in the long run. And I want you guys to look at this level as a vehicle. Once you first check off the first box, which is creating the cash flow, well, then you move into the second step, which is multiplying it, right? And then the third step, which is preserving it. This level 7 is all about the preserving phase, okay? And me personally, right, where I'm at, I've developed this very large Airbnb arbitrage portfolio, and I've used this vehicle to get me to my goals. So for me, I'm still scaling my arbitrage portfolio, but I'm also getting into more longer term projects, right? Buying short-term rentals, development projects I'm looking at here at the end of the year into next year. And this is really where you become into preserving your wealth. And it's okay to sacrifice ROI or have a bigger cash conversion cycle. And you can afford to wait for these bigger projects, these bigger investments, because you still have a large income stream that's consistently bringing in revenue, which is your Airbnb arbitrage portfolio. The business model was never the destination, right? It's the vehicle that is used to get to these goals, and then it makes everything else possible. Arbitrage got you here with a low startup capital, high scalability rate, and now now it opens up doors to other investments that would have never been on the table. Most people who get into Airbnb arbitrage are only thinking about their first property. But once you get to level 7, the doors that open up are completely different. You can start buying the properties that you've been arbitraging. You can get into long-term rentals or development projects like we spoke about, bigger deals that would have been completely out of reach before. Arbitrage is what gives you the capital and credibility to do it all. Now, if you want more clarity on what these levels actually look like in real life, I did a full breakdown with one of my clients, Jake. He went from making $3,000 a month from detailing cars to now making $25,000 a month with Airbnb arbitrage. I'll link it in this video right here, so go check it out.